Hey Matt,
Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good. I'm glad we finally got this set up.
I don't know. It's working way better time than when you had it earlier.
Yeah, like when we set this up last night and we said 1 o'clock, I looked up your time zone and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know about that one, Chief. Like, I don't know if this is gonna happen.
No, it wasn't gonna happen, dude. I remember what was I gonna say? When I was going to sleep, I'm like, hopefully this guy didn't mean Eastern, and then I didn't check till this morning. I forgot because I was actually really tired. I just couldn't fall asleep. And then this morning I looked at him like, sorry, you missed call. I looked at I'm like, did say EST. I'm such an idiot.
That's okay. As soon as you didn't text back or didn't answer, I figured right away that that's what happened.
Yeah, I was like 9 o'clock. I would have probably not agreed to that if I read it properly. To be honest.
So we'll start from the beginning. The question you've probably gotten 1,000 times: How, when, and why did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
My older brother was always a wrestling fan when I was growing up. Like he's 10 years older than me, so like he grew up a Hulkamaniac. So I was fortunate enough to like grow up around like having all the action figures, having the magazines, watching wrestling, a bunch of VHS tapes of 80s and 90s wrestling. So I just immediately got hooked. My first memory, like I have two because I don't know which one came first. Obviously, I must have been watching wrestling since I was very little if my brother was watching it, but I remember one peeking into our playroom in our old house. And my brother and his friends were watching wrestling, and it was Razor versus Shawn Michaels in the ladder match. And I can't tell you if it was the SummerSlam one or the WrestleMania one, but I
Right.
vividly remember seeing Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon in the ladder match and being like, "Whoa, this is nuts." And the other memory I have of actually like watching wrestling live on television, because I had VHS tapes, but I used to record all the Raws and stuff
Right.
in the 90s. This was on TV, and it was like the free for all before SummerSlam '96, and it was Yokozuna versus Stone Cold. And it stood out to me so much because Yoko went for a bonsai drop and the ropes broke, and those would be my earliest two memories. But I was mesmerized by the characters. Like I was like every other kid. I grew up watching X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman, and Rugrats, and all that other stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of think early on I knew like those are like cartoons, and wrestling was real, and these were like
Right.
real life superheroes, So it really, really stood out to me, and like it was everybody's larger than life. It was just there's some really good stuff.
Was there anybody in particular that drew you in, or was it just the spectacle of everything together?
It was a spectacle, everything, but definitely people stood out to me, like, and without a doubt, because like even like when I used to watch a VHS tapes that had like '80s wrestling, and I'd see someone like the Macho Man, like that definitely like that. I'm like, this guy is so weird. There was something about him that was like large in life, so colorful, his voice, and like my brother obviously was the biggest Hulkamaniac, but Hulk didn't resonate to me like the Macho Man did. I'm like, this guy is like he captured my imagination, and I think that was the biggest thing for me of my younger years of wrestling was who captured my imagination. Like, who did I get excited to see? Fortunately, when I first saw The Undertaker, he was a good guy. It was Purple Glove Undertaker in like 1995, 96. And every time I saw him, I would just be like it was just, he was larger than life. He was like a dead guy. It just, those type of characters are what really stood out to me. And those guys that had like unique voices that were colorful, that had some sort of gimmick like that. And then when I got a little bit older, like when I was like 9, 10, then I started going towards guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and like people that have these like cool personalities. I thought Bret was like the coolest dude out there. Even when he was a bad guy on the Hart Foundation days, I thought he was like the coolest dude out there. Shawn Michaels, when I was a kid, was a little different because he was a little flamboyant. So being a Shawn Michaels fan in the mid '90s was kind of hard because you're a little kid running around singing "Sexy Boy" and
Right.
whatnot, and people were like, "Huh?" But like I always, so something that drew me to Shawn Michaels too. I also thought he had that cool "I don't give a rat's ass about anyone's opinion"
Sure.
type of attitude as well. So it changed throughout the years, and obviously I was fortunate enough to like really start watching it live on TV around like '96 when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and then I grew up like sneakily trying to watch WWF because they went through their period of Sable and Val Venus and stuff, and then watching WCW, seeing the cool NWO, seeing Hall and Nash and Hogan as a bad guy, like that was my childhood. And then going through my teenage years, I got the Ruthless Aggression era, which was also great.
I was wondering how long it would take you to bring up Randy Savage. I had a bet with myself.
Macho's a man, dude. There might be something to it. The fact that my brother's such a Hogan fan that I ended up being a Macho fan. Like the Hogan's like complete like opposite. he just right off the bat, I saw this guy cut promos. His voice stood out to me. His outfits, and that's the one thing I really praised Macho Man. Like he always had the robes with the outfits that was so
Sure.
colorful and larger than life, and he just though I'm talking a lot about the character because I'm a very big character storyline guy. But you could put on Macho Man matches, and I would like. And there's only few like there's not those many people can say that about. Even Taker, like you can put on some Taker matches, and I might not be that into it
Sure.
because I love Taker the character more
Sure.
than the matches. But you put on any Macho Man matches, you put on any Bret Hart matches, you put on any Shawn Michaels matches, like I won't be bored with those three. You know, I can watch those three wrestle people all day and not get bored.
When I was getting this together and getting ready for it, I said to myself, within the first 5 minutes, this man is going to bring up Randy Savage.
Yeah, no, he's a man. And people are like, how can you be a big Macho Man fan? You weren't even alive in his prime in the 80s at that time. Like,
it doesn't matter.
I grew up with an older brother. Like, I had all that stuff on tapes. I watched that just as much as I watched regular TV, watching the Saturday Night main events. I'm watching these WrestleManias and SummerSlams. And I also grew up with NWO Macho Man. That's why I also have a special love for WCW Macho Man, because he was one of those people that I got excited every time he came on my screen. He was just a loose cannon, that guy.
Now, I think a lot of people watched wrestling as a kid, but most people kind of fade away as they get older. Was there anything in particular that kind of kept you watching and made you one of those people that doesn't just walk away from it?
So no, I talk about this all the time because I do think it happens to everyone where there is a period of time where you don't fully fall out. If you're a hardcore fan like me, like I've never fully fallen out of it.
Sure.
But there was a time I started watching a lot less. I was from when I first started watching. Like, I'm not going to talk about the stuff I watched that was from years before I even really started watching, like before I was born and stuff. But like, I remember starting watching like Raw on Mondays and Nitro and stuff in 1996. Like, that was the year I started watching wrestling live without VHS tapes, and like that's when I was like, oh, Monday I'm gonna watch Raw. Like I was a little kid, you know what I mean? And my parents knew all about it because my brother. But I went hard all the way up until like, I'd say 2007. I watched Raw religiously. I never did miss Raw, even though I wasn't that into what the product at the time. I never really missed Raw from 2007 to 2011. Like I watched Raw pretty much every Monday.
Yeah.
But they moved SmackDown to Fridays.
Sure.
Around like 2007, and you know I was in grade 10 in 2007 because I graduated in 2009. So I was like in grade 10 in 2007. I was in high school. So Fridays for me wasn't sitting home and watching wrestling. I was out and being a teenager, and I fell out of it a little bit, and I wasn't that big on what was going on. Like I really wasn't. I respect the crap out of him now. I understand his purpose and who he is, but I was one of those guys that really disliked John Cena always winning. I hated it.
I think we all did.
Like yeah, so like when people talk about like if there's any like, you know, because if I talk about my top 10 favorite wrestlers, it's very hard for me to put any new wrestlers on there when it comes to the men, because there's so many people I grew up watching that take those top 20 spots. But I'm like, there's guys from the Ruthless Aggression era that are in my top 20 because that's when I was a teenager, and I was naming them to someone yesterday in a live stream. I'm like, it was like, you know, like Randy Orton, Edge, Batista, CM Punk, and then he started laughing like, not John Cena. I'm like, no, and I'm like, it's funny because these are all guys that weren't or against John Cena that I ended up really liking, because I guess I really didn't like John Cena.
I guess not.
I guess not. Like Edge, I'm like, yeah, Edge and Cena had a great feud. Randy Orton and John Cena had a great feud. I'm like, oh yeah, Punk and Cena had a great feud. Oh, Batista and Cena were like the complete opposites. I'm like, I liked everyone that wasn't Cena, I guess. But I didn't watch SmackDown that much throughout those years. I didn't watch all the pay-per-views from 2007, 2011.
Sure.
Like now, like I never miss a pay-per-view. And before that, I would never miss a pay-per-view. Obviously as a kid, I'd miss some here and there because we order them all the time. But
right.
I knew what was going on. Like I was sad for missing them. But like those years, I still go back and I watch some of those SmackDowns. I don't even remember some of these angles. Some of these guys that were on the roster very briefly that came and left. Like I had no idea. I didn't really watch every pay-per-view in those years. It was kind of like my down period from wrestling. Like I kind of fell out of it. So I watched Raw religiously, and I watched Impact. I was a big Impact fan.
Me too.
TNA fan from 2002 to 2011. Like during those years, it was on Thursdays. I used to watch Impact. Wednesdays and Thursdays, I used to have the whole Main Event Mafia periods.
Yeah.
Being there, Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash guys, Paparazzi, you know, like all of that stuff. Motor Machine Guns, Beer Money, America's Most Wanted. Like I was a TNA fan until 2011. What brought me back in was CM Punk.
When I first started watching Impact, I was at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather was a big wrestling fan, and I went in the bedroom and I saw it was Jeff Hart, or it was an ex WWE guy, and I was like, oh man, I know that guy. And then from there on, it was just like, oh wait, I know him, and it was just every week.
No, and I totally get that. For me, what was crazy was you gotta understand. How old are you?
I'm 20.
If you don't mind me asking. Okay, so I grew up being able to do WCW and WWF. Like I got to do the flipping back and forth. I had 2 programs that were really good. Hence why I love what we have today with AEW. People that were born after that era might not get it, but like there was something special about having 2 things.
Having to pick.
And they were different. That's the thing, because everything under the WWE umbrella somewhat feels the same.
Sure.
Even NXT, like the rest is better, but it still feels like the same scripted promos, the same production. It's a WWE thing. So it's nice to have something that isn't WWE. And for years, TNA really did provide that. Really did. Obviously, they kind of fell off the wagon now, and it's not the same. But for a lot of years, they provided that thing that wasn't WWE. It might never reach the heights of WWE reach, because now WWE is like the monster.
Sure.
But it was something different. And I loved it because it was something different. Like, as someone that grew up with WCW, it was weird, it was different. They'd bring guys in that I knew, they had talent I knew, but they also, like, people don't give it enough credit, like TNA, because now where it's at today, or they'll be like, oh, AEW is just like TNA, it's the same thing. Well, that's not I don't find that as an insult.
That's not a diss at all. Really good at one point. I mean, you look at WWE's look at WWE's main event scene right now.
Yeah.
You got,
and that's what I mean. Look who it introduced us to, like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe,
Drew.
Drew was there for a bit, but just generally like the initial like group, like Bobby Roode, AJ Styles, Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, all those guys are the guys that I knew from TNA. You know what I mean? They were TNA guys,
right?
Even like Austin Aries, Eric Young, like. We would have not known about these guys. P.D. Williams and the Canadian Destroyer, we would not have known about these guys. A move that's overly used today. Right. We wouldn't have known about these guys and what they did if it wasn't for TNA, because TNA did provide us something different. So, yeah, I did fall out of it for a bit. The thing that kept me watching was just because it's such a long way to get back to your question. But the thing that just kept me watching is I always did love and appreciate wrestling. I wasn't the biggest Cena fan, and I was at that age where, like, you know, I was in high school and stuff. I fell out of it, and it was honestly, and it's cliche as hell, but when it comes to the WWE product, it got kind of stale and too PG for me around. Like, so I say I stopped watching 2007, but like 2008, it got super PG. Like, it got super not what I was used to growing up with.
The celebrity hosts and stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like 80s type of PG. It was just like cheesy, corny PG.
Yeah.
Like, it got really. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of good stuff that happened during that period. Like, I did love and like I said, I watched Raw religiously, so I can't really tell you a lot of what was happening on SmackDown, but, like, I loved the entire, like, Age of Orton and Legacy stuff. I loved, you know, Edge's run. You know, it was that weird period in 2008 where, like, Batista was back on Raw and he was feuding with John Cena.
Yeah.
And, like, there was some stuff that I watched on Raw that I did thoroughly enjoy. It's just I wasn't as into it, and things were cheesy, and then I don't know if you remember, like, right before Punk dropped that pipe bomb, it was R-Truth versus John Cena for
Capital
the
Punishment.
Capital Punishment.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. Like, R-Truth is great, Cena's great. Don't get me wrong. But, like, I remember their weapon of choice at one point was like a water bottle. Like, he was hitting me in the head with a water bottle, and like R-Truth was getting laid out or something. I'm like, this isn't good. Like, it's not. It's entertaining, but it's not good. It's not like I want to watch it. And then Punk dropped the pipe bomb, and as cliche as that sounds, I was hooked again. I'm like, this finally felt real again, because everything else just felt cheesy, corny, and PG as hell.
And it's funny because everything you just mentioned there was my childhood. Yeah. Like when Randy Orton was kicking Vince McMahon's head off, I was 9 years old and furious. Yeah. I hated that dude.
But there were those little things. There were little things like that happened that I did love. Like that, I genuinely mentioned the Age of Orton stuff because I was very entertained with the Age of Orton stuff, kicking Vince in the head, getting with Legacy. I loved all of that. You know, there were some guys that were on the roster in that period that were like just little hidden gems. Like, Punk was great on SmackDown when I did watch it. That Straight Edge Savior stuff was great.
Fantastic.
Umaga was great. I was a big Umaga fan.
Terrified
one of those
me.
Guys that I wish Cena pretty much just beat. There was stuff that was good. I continued to be a Batista fan. Of course, I continued to be an Undertaker fan. The Rock came back early 2011. That was a really cool moment. I did enjoy some of the guest hosts. Like, I did enjoy, like, Jesse Ventura back on WWE television and stuff like that. There were certain things that were good. It's just I wasn't that into it as I was before and how I am now. It was a weird period. And like I said, I just mainly watched Raw. That was my thing.
With us both being Canadian, I got to ask you something because no one else seems to remember this. Do you remember Aftermath?
Watched it since day one, dude.
Really?
Watched it since it's been Arda, Renee, and Jimmy Cordara's back in the day.
And Arda Ocal?
Yeah, Arda.
Yeah, no one else.
I've been watching.
No one seems to remember that.
People also don't. It's still on with Caroline and not Jimmy and Seth Marella, but like I've obviously watched it off and on. I was always like, even back then, I'm like, man, I wish I could do a show like that one day and do something like that because that was so cool. They're just talking about wrestling on Sportsnet. A lot of people don't remember. A lot of people don't know, and I always kind of bring it up because American people don't get it. I'm like, what was so weird, like in 2012 and 13 before the network dropped, the WWE network in 2014, is that everyone's like, oh, like, how do you say, like, you've been a Sasha Banks fan since... I'm like, it was weird because we got those NXT shows here in Canada.
We did on Sportsnet, or The Score.
Yeah, we actually had NXT on Sportsnet, so I actually used to watch, like, NXT since its inception. I'm like, I remember Richie Steamboat being on there and stuff like that. Like, I remember Seth winning the belts. We actually got to watch it here because most people didn't get to watch it unless they were in that Florida area, and they didn't get to watch NXT until it came to the network. Like, all those early episodes they put on now that weren't there originally, like they put on the earlier episodes. I'm like, I watched all this because it actually used to come on TV in Canada. I remember when Sasha turned heel and aligned with Charlotte and Summer Rae. Like, I remember all of that because we actually had it.
I'll never forget the first time when I found out WWE had signed Renee Young. I freaked out because I was like, oh man, that's the girl.
She's so cool too, man. Like, just a genuine person, actually. So like, I only know that now, but even back then, like, I was a big fan of hers. And it was cool seeing someone from our neck of the woods, from Canada, doing the thing, getting that job.
Right.
And even I remember when Arda worked for them for a bit too. They changed his name. I think it was a Kyle or something. But like, he was there for a bit. He did his thing. It's cool that they got to go from Sportsnet doing a wrestling show like that and launch into WWE. That's it's goals to be honest. I'd love to be able to do the TWC show, let it grow, and then eventually get to work with them for a bit and do some cool stuff. I admire guys like Renee, girls like Renee, and guys like Rosenberg and Sam Roberts, who were doing their own thing and got to transition to work with the company. I think you'll probably have that question for later down the road. But like, if I had like what am I really wanting to do, it'd be something like that, to build enough credibility where they're like, well, let's work with this guy.
Now we do obviously have to talk about your Instagram account. You joined, if I'm correct, February 2014. You've got 572,000 followers, almost 27,000 posts. Just talk to me about your Instagram account. Why did you start it? And did you ever think it would grow to where it's at now?
Why did I start it?
Yeah, we'll start with that.
Okay, so there's so many different reasons. I told the story so many. Obviously, the funny story that I tell, because it is true, is my ex-girlfriend didn't want me to have Instagram, so I made a wrestling account, which that is partially true.
Love that.
But the other part of it was, like, I honestly, like I said, I fell out of it, right?
Right.
And then when I got really back into it in 2011, a lot of my friends at the time and stuff, they didn't watch wrestling. And, I did, like, wrestling was a form of escapism for me. It was for, my hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours of the week that I would escape from reality and I'd watch wrestling. And it was always fun talking to people about wrestling and engaging with other fans. And when I was younger, I actually did go on a ton of those, like, forums and talk to people. I was part of those, like, e-feds back in the day where you could, like, I did all those type of things when I was younger, and I was always engaging with wrestling fans. Throughout those years, I didn't have anyone to engage with wrestling fans. I'd go on Twitter, but I found Twitter to be, like, really negative. Like, that was, like, the negative wrestling fan community. It was mainly a lot of people complaining, and it was really saturated. There's already so many, like, wrestling people on there that were, like, they knew what they're talking about, and they had already their following and stuff. Instagram at the time was fairly new. It was only pictures. There was no videos. There was no stories.
It was blue and white.
And there wasn't really those. yeah, and there really wasn't those many wrestling accounts. Like, I came on here, and I'm a marketing student. I went to marketing for school. I helped, I did an internship, launching social media accounts and doing stuff like that. So I was well aware of how to use social media. And I remember looking around, and I'm like, I follow some wrestling pages. Some of them were like meme accounts.
Sure.
Some of them were like just focusing on independent wrestling. Some of them like was just focusing on the current stuff. They'd be like Shield fan pages or like Bellator fan pages. You know what I mean? Or you'd get those really weird people that still do exist, where they make like an Undertaker page and like pretend they actually are the
Undertaker, yeah, that's weird.
Which is like so weird. But like that's what was there. There was a couple of like old school wrestling pages. There was Classic Wrestling and like I think $1 Million Champion. They both blocked me because I came and it's like skyrocketed.
Nice.
But they were like don't do the Classic Wrestling accounts. But I also didn't think they were posting. They weren't doing it right in my mind. I felt like they were just posting stuff, but I knew how to do it better. So I was like, I'll make a wrestling page. And I remember I beat the system in 2014. February 22nd was the day I created the page. I had the WWE Network in Canada before it ever even got released in Canada. And I was watching the Wrestling Classic, and I was eating. And I'm like, well, I'll just make a page. And I was like, how'd you come up with the name? I was watching the Wrestling Classic. that would be a great name for a wrestling page. And I called it the Wrestling Classic. And the first picture I posted was this Macho Man picture that I loved and had been the screensaver on a lot of my phones beforehand.
Nice.
And was the screensaver of my phone till today. It's my main lock screen picture, always, like every phone I've had for like the last 7 or 8 years. And that was the first picture I posted, and I just started rolling out with pictures and stuff and doing the thing. And I was really good at finding like rare old school content and sharing the history. But the biggest thing for me was responding to comments and actually engaging with the fans, like talking to them and having fun with it and making jokes and just bringing wrestling fans together in a positive way. Because, like I said, Twitter and everything else, there seems to be a lot of complaining and like, I already knew this was going to happen. Or Sure. I want to break that old idea of like cynical wrestling fans that complain about everything, are never happy, or only listen to what Dave Meltzer says. Like, just form your own opinions, have fun with it. Yeah, we can talk about what we didn't like and what we did like, but we can agree to disagree, and we can just remember why we liked wrestling. I wanted to get the older fans to know what was going on today if they stopped watching, if they don't know more. And I wanted the younger fans to see what we grew up on and the old school stuff, to know the history and all of that. And I was like, because I am a student of the game. I know a lot of stuff because I love wrestling. I was always doing my research, always reading magazines, and always going on deep dives on the internet, reading about the history and this and that. And I just wanted to engage with wrestling fans and, remind them why it meant so much to us growing up and why it still means so much to people today, and just have those conversations during Raws and SmackDowns and have those conversations with people and get those responses. At the beginning, I hid my identity, never showed myself, never shared my name.
Sure.
I wanted my personal page. I blocked all my friends and family. I was like Batman on there, and regular Justin was Bruce Wayne, and it wasn't until it started to blow up, and that's the thing. Timing is everything. I don't think you could start a wrestling page today and have it happen the same way, because now there's like a plethora of wrestling pages. Sure. Like everybody's got a wrestling page, and a lot of them are posting the same content, and you can't even get mad about someone posting the same thing as you, because one, none of us own this stuff, and two, everyone's posting the same things.
Right.
There's not that much creativity. Even not only just like classic clip stuff, like meme pages. Like, there's really a lack of creativity that you can really do, because it's happened now. Like,
it's all been done.
It's kind of like Twitter now. We've built a community. What were you gonna say?
I said it's all the same. Like, I've been following you pretty much since 2014, and I remember then and even now you were kind of the only one that had a mix. Like you said, a lot of accounts were focused on old school, new school, memes, parodies, whatever the case. But you were kind of the first and still kind of the only to have a mixture of everything. And I think that's what has really helped you. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it was evolving and doing different things.
Right.
And the key was always the engaging with the followers and knowing that this is what I always tell people when they ask me for advice. Like, hey, I'm starting a page. What would you say to me? And I'm like, one, lower your expectations. It's not about likes and followers.
Sure.
You have to enjoy just posting, talking to people and commenting and stuff, because otherwise, if you're doing it for those reasons, you're going to get upset because it's not the same anymore. Two, you got to be a person. And I didn't realize that right off the bat either. I'd be lying if I said I realized that right off the bat. I realized it when I started seeing people wearing my shirts and nobody knew who the person actually was. And I'm like,
Right.
I need to own it. I realized that when, like, The Rock followed me and The Weeknd followed me and, like, wrestlers and celebrities are following me. I'm like, oh, this could be a great network connection thing for me. Like, I can create connections with these wrestlers and these people, and they'll trust the person, But it's just being a person generally, because people need to be able to relate to you. They want to, if you're just posting pictures and clips, but you don't have any opinions, or you're not talking to people, you're not saying what that moment meant to you and stuff. No, it's just not the same. If you're posting a video clip, like, people will like it. They'll love the old school clip. Like, oh, I remember this, and have their own conversations. But they'll stick around if something happens to your page or anything with you, because they like the person and they relate to the person and they like what they talk about. And they, and I think I'm always like, to try to be a person more than just trying to be a page that posts pictures and clips, because there's a ton of those. Or people that try to be analysts in the, like, Dave Meltzer kind of way, where they're just trying to break the news and this and that. Like, that's not even, I have never tried to take that route either, because I'm like, I don't want people to think of me as, like, I'm just trying to get the scoop. I'm just trying to get people to watch wrestling.
Sure.
That's all I'm trying to do. And if there is some breaking news, I'm going to share it. But as long as I know it's confirmed and it's legit news,
right,
we want to talk about it. But otherwise, I'm not here trying to get the scoop. I'm not here trying to, like, the wrestlers that do follow me and do know who I am personally, and I want them to know they can trust me when they tell me something. Like, I'm not going to, like, throw it on my page like, oh, my source said. No.
Sure.
Like, because I think that actually, whoever listens to, like, if you were trying to get involved in the wrestling industry, like, try to be the least amount of a mark as you can be. We're all marks.
Right.
People on the roster are marks.
Sure.
Because now we're at a generation where these guys grew up watching wrestling the same way we did. They just took the leap of faith and, went to go become a wrestler.
Of course.
But just try not to be like that smart mark, because that was another reason why I started the page. I stopped reading the dirt sheets and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, I'd go on Backstage Wrestling, I'd go on No DQ, I'd always try to know what was going on. But when I got back into it in 2011, I'm like, I realized that the thing that was so cool about the CM Punk thing is that we didn't see it coming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was, like, a lot of the things in my childhood. Like, the things that were cool when I was a kid was, like, we didn't see Eric Bischoff coming. We didn't see this happening. We didn't know Brett was going to do this. We didn't know when Brett got mad about getting screwed, if it was real or not. Like, that's what made wrestling great. But then we moved into an era of the internet where, like, everyone was trying to know everything. Everybody wanted to be the expert and be like, they knew the business. They were trying to, like, oh, I know, but that doesn't make it fun. Like, it still happens till this day. Someone will go read something and be like, something will happen. And it'll be like, well, Dave Meltzer kind of already reported that. Stop reading his crap. Don't let that. I don't care. Like, something happened recently, and they're like, well, Dave Meltzer said that was going to happen. I'm like, well, see, he might have said that, but I didn't know that because I don't read Dave Meltzer's stuff. No disrespect to him. So it was still surprising for me, and I enjoyed it because it was a surprise for me. You know why? Because I wasn't trying to figure it out. I had ideas and predictions, but I didn't actually have someone say, "Oh, this guy's there," just so you know. So when it happens, you're like, "Oh, well, yeah, it was already reported." Like, that wasn't a surprise. Like, you're making it hard for any company to surprise you because you're trying to figure out everything anyways. You can't be a detective and a spectator at the same time.
Sure. Well, I remember when Edge came back at the Rumble, it had kind of been reported that maybe it was going to happen, but there was enough doubt. And there was enough no, come on, that can't happen. That when it finally did happen, it was like, whoa, you know what I mean?
100%. And I think those are the best, though. When I don't mind rumors, but when someone tries to report it fast, like, oh, this person's there, and it's a spoiler, that's the worst. Because that's why, like I said, I didn't follow the dirt sheets no more, but I did my point was I did keep up with wrestling through social media to kind of know what was going on and stay in the loop. And that's why I was like, oh, that was another reason why I made the page, because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to deactivate my personal Instagram because of relationship issues, I'm still going to make a page where I can keep up with just wrestling stuff.
I stand by this, and I've said this for many years. I don't think the Attitude Era would have been the Attitude Era with social media.
Nothing prior to
this
that has happened in wrestling would have been the same if there was social media. And don't get me wrong, there was still dirt sheets and rumor. If you read The Observer, you probably ruined stuff for yourself back then. But social media makes everything so much more accessible, and for rumors and things to spread so much faster that it wouldn't be the same. And then the thing that also happens with social media is that you have to take in the negative with the positive.
Right.
And sometimes other people's perspective ruins things because maybe sometimes they do make a point, but it's like, well, I didn't really care about that until I read you say it. Like, you
Sure.
know what I mean?
Like I remember
Right.
being I
So,
remember being a kid and I would watch Raw or SmackDown and I'd be like, oh man, that was a really good episode. Like I really liked this and I really liked when Randy Orton did that. And then I'd go on Facebook and I was in a few wrestling like groups and everyone would be like, oh, it's the worst episode of Raw I've ever seen. And then I'd be like, yeah, maybe it was bad. Like it's crazy how
yeah.
it can alter your perception super fast. You almost feel
And then
left out.
I also realized a long time ago, mostly when I started my page, how negative wrestling fans are and how nitpicky and how much they trash on things, because the thing is, we hate things in the moment, but we love nostalgia, which makes no sense.
Right.
I remember during the Ruthless Aggression era, there was so many things people hated of those Raws and stuff.
Of
Oh,
course.
Triple H is bearing everyone. He's always a champion. A lot of people probably still hate that. That's probably a bad example. But there's a lot of things people hate. Like, oh, this Raw was boring. Like, nothing happened. These matches suck. And we were getting, like, great matches like Raw Van Dam versus Eddie Guerrero and stuff. And people were like, oh, this Raw sucks. It's nothing compared to the Attitude Era. Da-da-da-da-da. Because everyone was comparing it to the past.
Right.
Now, we're like 15 years later, and people look back at those Ruthless Aggression episodes of Raw and stuff, the same ones that I remember back then, in the moment, in the time people were trashing and saying it sucked, or this sucked, and that sucked. Now they look back and they're like, oh, that was way better than the stuff we get today.
Right.
And that's what always happens. You know, and I will never say it about that period that I stopped watching, like that 2007 to 2011 period, because I won't go back and say those episodes were better. But for the younger generation now, like your generation of kids, like, you might think that stuff was better than what's going on sometimes today too.
Sure.
Because that's what you grew up on. It's that nostalgia factor. And we all loved what we loved when we were a kid or when we were younger. So it's crappy. Like, a lot of people probably trash on the things that happened, that are happening right now. But 6 years down the road, they look back and they're like, those are good days. Oh, those Raws are actually pretty solid.
I always like to say that
Yeah.
nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans.
Yeah, it's like they're gonna always hate in the present. They're never satisfied. So that's why I made it a big thing on my page. Is like, listen, I know that people are never satisfied. What I want people to learn to do is just agree to disagree.
Sure.
Because some people do like it, some people dislike it. Your opinion you're entitled to your opinion, and it can be valid. But just remember, it's your opinion. It's the same thing I try to teach my followers about Dave Meltzer, like his match ratings and his thoughts on matches and stuff are his opinions. They're not fact.
Right.
Like, I don't disrespect Dave Meltzer at all. I think Dave Meltzer is the man. He built something for so many years and built the credibility of his newsletter. He's a hustler. I've met him a couple times. He's actually a really nice guy.
Right.
I've never disliked Dave Meltzer. I dislike the people that use Dave Meltzer's words in arguments with me or with other people. Like, well, Dave Meltzer said it was 5 stars, so that's not an argumentative point. That's not a point. That's not like a fact that you can use in an argument. That Dave Meltzer, that's his opinion.
Right. And
you know? And that's why I hate people that praise his word like it's gospel. Like, no, that's his opinion. Even if I say anything, don't use. And then if anyone listens to this is a follower of my page and very loyal follower, don't ever use the wrestling classics that this. Because my opinion is my opinion, but it's not a fact. It's just my opinion.
Right. And it's always crazy how
Form your own opinion.
we talk about the Attitude Era like it's the holy grail and we put it on this pedestal. But if you go back and watch the Attitude Era, especially the Raws, a lot of it was not that good.
This is the thing. It was good, but it was a different kind of good. The matches sucked.
That's what I mean.
3-minute matches. You know what I mean? Compared to what we get now, we get like matches that go 3-4 breaks. To be honest with you, there is still a part of me that kind of enjoyed that formula better than what they do now. Because it's hard for me to watch a match that goes. Like, I can watch 1 or 2 matches on a Raw or SmackDown that goes a couple of breaks if it's like the main event or like a really good feud. But if you're just having every other match go like 3 segments, you lose my interest in the commercials if I'm watching live.
It's funny how we went from like putting moments over wrestling to flipping it. Like now wrestling is so good that it's kind of like, nah, you know what I mean?
It's
like
so good all the time.
Yeah.
Let me get your opinion on this, because this is an interesting conversation. I say this all the time. I am a character storyline guy, and I think matches, I enjoy them more if I'm invested in the characters and the storylines.
Sure.
But we get so much good wrestling on a weekly basis now, like good matches on Raws and SmackDowns and stuff, that none of them feel special.
I agree.
Like, if I asked you what was the best match on Raw 3 weeks ago, do you even remember?
Not a clue.
But that's the difference, because what is like, I understand like there are wrestling fans that really love the wrestling aspect, and I do appreciate and I do enjoy good wrestling matches
Sure.
as much as the next person. But I do strongly believe characters and storylines is what sells wrestling. And there's a less of that now, and there's more really good wrestling, and that is why I think it's a different fan base. They're moving with the times, but as an old school fan, it's hard for me to enjoy it the same way because I grew up on characters and storylines. Raws used to be the machine back in like the Attitude Era and stuff to take you to the pay-per-views where you got the more quality style longer matches. Raw and SmackDowns was just because you don't remember the matches.
Right.
If you told me that what matches happened in the Attitude Era and Raws, I don't remember a lot of them. I remember a lot of the main events and stuff. Like I said, the main events should go multiple segments. The main events should be like, the bigger feuds. But the reason I remember a lot of the main events is because I cared about the characters and stuff. I cared about Stone Cold the character. I cared about Rock the character. I cared about the Undertaker the character. So I cared about those main events and stuff. That's the problem. You can't just throw Seth Rollins in a match with Kevin Owens on the end of a Raw, and I'm supposed to just care.
Right.
I don't know why do I care about Seth Rollins? Why do I care about this feud? You're giving me nothing. They'll have a banger of a match. But what else?
Well, I remember when I was a little kid, I had a 3-disc set. DVDs were my thing. I had a little portable DVD player in my mom's car. I'd get in the car and I would just watch wrestling DVDs. And I had the it was like the 100 best moments in SmackDown history. It was like their 10th anniversary 3-disc set or whatever. It was like 2009. And I remember a match would come on and I would skip it because I wanted the moments. I wanted the returns, the debuts, the big wins or whatever the case, because that was what made me care about the people. Like I could see a fantastic match and be like, well, that's great. I don't know who any of these people are because I wasn't around then.
So that's also really similar to how I grew up too, because like I said, I had all those VHS tapes and stuff, and I had all those like 96, 97 Raws, and I found myself a lot forwarding through matches and just wanting to get to the promos and the moments.
Right.
So I know since a kid, I've always been like a promo character guy. And then I'd watch the match if I was like really into what was going on. But I love the moments. And now let's go back. My page is the perfect example of it. Why do you think people glorified the Attitude Era so much? Because there was so many moments. Why do you think wrestling was at a peak level in pop culture and society? Because there's just so many moments. People remember the moments. They don't really remember the matches. I always say the best wrestler to really point that out about is like The Rock.
Sure.
I can't tell you my top 5 favorite Rock matches. I can't. 3 of them will probably be against Austin or something.
Right. Sure.
Maybe a couple against Triple H. I could probably do it, but like that's not what I remember The Rock for.
Sure.
I remember The Rock for his promos. I remember The Rock for his charisma, his presence. Like that's what The Rock was for me. He wasn't the wrestler. And then I always say this.
Go ahead.
Another thing I'm gonna pose this question to you. And there are, don't get me wrong, we have guys like The Fiend. We have guys out there.
Well,
you can. There are people out there that you can, like the New Day and Daniel Bryan. But Seth Rollins, when he was a babyface and he was the Universal Champion, okay. If you were with a friend of yours who's never watched wrestling, but they were over with you, and you were watching it, so they're watching it with you, and they're like, "Oh, so who's the Seth Rollins guy? Like, how would you describe him?"
Couldn't tell you.
What's his character?
It depends on what Seth Rollins you're talking about.
Exactly. What's his character? What was that babyface Seth Rollins character?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
What was babyface AJ Styles' character?
I
love AJ Styles. What was his character as a babyface?
I always say that people's character now is good wrestler. Like Cedric Alexander, his character
That's not a character.
His character is good wrestler.
Not a character.
You know what I mean?
You can't go to something like this guy's character is he's a great wrestler. Like that's like remember we do have characters. Like you could say, okay, the Fiend, he's this guy, he used to be a cult leader, da 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 da. You can kind of describe him as Roman Reigns, he's like a Samoan badass, like da 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 da. You can kind of describe like there's people on that roster you can definitely describe. Kevin Owens, like he's like your average guy, but he's got a big mouth. He's like a prize fighter. He just doesn't take shit from anybody. Like there are people you can describe, but there's certain people you're like you can't. Like even to be honest with you. Like, if you ask me what Drew McIntyre is, I don't even feel comfortable saying he's a Scottish psychopath because he doesn't do anything psycho.
Right.
So what is this character?
Well, I think that's a lot of what's drawing people to AEW because they've got a lot of really clearly defined characters. Like, generally what Cody Rhodes' character is.
Nope.
No?
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No, for sure. No, they do.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, I said, you cut out for a second. But no, for sure. And that's like you saw that this past week on AEW where they had the heels on one side and the baby faces on the other.
Right.
Like the heels are betting with each other and they had such defined characters. Like that is the difference. And like I said, it's not that the WWE doesn't have them; they do. It's just a lot of people you can't describe. It's tough. It's tough. Like the women's division is pretty decent. Like you can describe most of the women as characters.
Right.
I think. It's just hard with a lot of the men, and mainly the babyface men that become just like white meat baby faces. You know why the baby faces in the previous eras are so cool? It's because they were people you could describe Stone Cold, you can describe The Rock, you can describe Mick Foley, you can describe Triple H, you can describe Shawn Michaels. And it's just like it's hard. That's just my opinion. But I think that we get really nostalgic about the past, and I think that there's a lack of. I prefer moments over just really good wrestling because that's just who I am, and I think I get a lot of people that disagree with that. They're like, no, the match is the best part, like this and that, and there are still people when there's too many talking segments for so long. They're like, when they didn't have a match for the first 30 minutes.
Sure.
Like, good, it's SmackDown. You're not going to remember what happened in the show 2 months from now.
Right. Do you think that's part of the reason why All Elite has been kicking NXT's butt for the past 20-something weeks? Because NXT has a couple good characters, but NXT is just kind of a good wrestling show. Like when I turn on NXT every week, I know I'm going to get a good wrestling show. But apart from a couple people like Velveteen Dream, I guess you could kind of explain. But when you turn on AEW, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to get a really good match, and I know who these people are. It's not just two people having a good match.
Is like this goes back to our previous conversation. For me, I'm still fascinated by AEW because it's an alternative. It's not under the WWE umbrella.
Sure.
And they're on a major network and they're trying to do something and they have people I know. And that really makes me more. And also, you don't know what to predict with AEW.
Right.
When you're under the WWE umbrella, it's not. I'm not saying it's predictable, but you kind of know what you're gonna get production wise. You know the promos are gonna be really scripted. You know what I mean? You know what you're gonna get when it's WWE. With AEW, I still feel like it's a mixed bag. One week you get something, the next week you get something different. Maybe I'm still fascinated because of that. So I think that's a big reason. I also think even though they're not selling out those big arenas every week, AEW, NXT sometimes just being in Full Sail just seems kind of small to me.
Right.
And regional. It feels, as much as they're trying to be it's a third brand, it still feels like a territorial, independent development brand because it's in Full Sail. And you got the same fans there every week that know what to boo and what to cheer, so there's no really change or mix up, and I understand why they don't go on the road and film their shows and all of that, but I think it would help if they did one show a month that wasn't in Full Sail,
right?
And exactly what you pointed out at the beginning. Sometimes I watch NXT, and I know what I'm going to get when I watch NXT. I'm going to get really good wrestling, but sometimes by the end of NXT, I'm drained from really good wrestling because it's just every match is good. Then it's just a marathon of good matches, and I'm I don't know what to think by the end. Nothing stands out. With AEW, sometimes you get a lot of matches that are similar, but you'll get a standout promo.
Right.
Whether it's from Jericho or from Pac or something, you'll get something that stands out to you. You'll get character development. Maybe you'll get a match that's too independent, gimmicky with flips and super kicks and whatnot.
Sure.
But then later on, you get a match with Jericho's and that's more of a wrestling match. You get a variety of different matches. It's kind of like a wrestling buffet where NXT is just good match after good match after good match. Everyone's getting the shit in,
Right.
Maybe a squash here and there, but otherwise it's a lot of the same stuff. The other thing about NXT that bothers me is that it's very. There's some weeks where I feel like I'm not going to see the characters I care about because there's a lot of people on there that I don't care about.
Right.
I like Keith Lee, I like the Undisputed Era, I like Velveteen Dream, I like Tegan Knox, I like obviously Ciampa and Gargano. But if they're not doing much on the show, and there's a bunch of these other people that I haven't really connected with yet, then I don't really care. Where what AEW has done is they've built enough characters that there's always someone on there that I'm excited to see, whether it's MJF, whether it's Pac, whether it's Jericho, whether it's Moxley, whether it's Cody. Somehow they've managed to make me care about more of their roster than I do the NXT roster.
Right. And you mentioned that AEW is an alternative. Do you worry that once they kind of, because right now they've got that shine of being something new and it's brand new and it's shining, it's a new toy. do you think that once they lose that kind of new appeal, will it make a difference? Because when they started, that was always my concern of like, okay, well, let's see what happens once they're not the new kids in town. Let's see what happens
No,
once people get used to it being there.
100%. 100%. I also think they're just gonna not make the same mistakes that other companies before them made. Like let's go back to WCW. WCW was its own weird thing. It wasn't the greatest in the early 90s, but it was still different than WWF. And then when they did the whole NWO thing, it was still different from the WWF.
Right.
When you got to the late 2000s, it's when Russo got there, it started feeling like it was trying to imitate the WWF.
Sure.
Don't ever try to be that. Be your own thing and stay your own thing. It almost is kind of like the same thing with Impact. It was so good, but still different always until you got Hogan and Bischoff, and then it kind of started feeling like it was trying to be the WWE.
Right.
Like it was trying to be like that. And then that's kind of when that's when I tuned out. And I don't think I ever properly tuned back in. I did kind of venture to see what was happening during that whole Aces and Eights era, but I never like watched weekly. I never got back into Impact ever again the same way like I was.
You kind of just keep an eye on it. You kind of just keep an eye on it. It's kind of like it's like it's like a pet.
I wasn't treated by the whole Aces and Eights thing because they did a good job of like building up the anticipation of who's going to join next and who's under the mask and and I was a big Sons of Anarchy fan. It's one of my favorite shows, so like I was with it, but like I never watched weekly because it's just like what AEW needs to do is just make sure they keep trying to be AEW, never try to be the WWE, and just keep trying to do their own thing and stay their own, because that's what makes the good alternative is being different,
Right.
And also don't get too reliable. Like in another company that I was a huge fan of for years, I discovered it on TV Saturday mornings back when like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan was still there. I remember Ricky Steamboat popped up, was Ring of Honor. I was a huge Ring of Honor fan.
Right.
I love the whole Adam Cole era, Kyle O'Reilly guys. Like I love Ring of Honor. It's where I got exposure to a lot of the Japanese wrestlers from the modern era that I didn't know because they'd come over for Global Wars and stuff. It's where I first saw Kevin Steen and the whole Scum storyline. It's where I first saw El Generico. Like I was a huge Ring of Honor fan, but they had angles in their storylines. I don't know the behind the scenes politics or like management of Ring of Honor. I don't know any of that stuff. But at one point, Ring of Honor got really wrestling heavy. Like it almost similar to what we were saying about NXT. It just became a show with those really good matches.
Sure. But
there really wasn't much characters or stories going on that was on the weekly show. That it got stale to me, which also shows that great matches are great, but we need characters, we need storylines, and we need reasons to be invested.
And just to circle back to your Instagram account real quick, I think it's safe to say that your Instagram account has become a brand more than an Instagram account. Was there any?
Oh, for sure.
Was there any one point in particular where you realized that switch was going on, or was it just kind of seamless? You started here, and now you've ended here.
I always, once again, being a marketing student, at first it was just like a fun thing to put together, but then I realized very quick that like, oh, this could be a thing.
Right.
Like people, because like I remember, like I still. Like originally, I was like, I didn't want people to remember like the Wrestling Classic was this page, Like if I was to just be like, dude, I used to love that page. I used to go there all the time and like watch a post like this and that. And we saw the funny ass conversations in the comments and this and that. Like I didn't want people to remember it like that because I remember the forums and stuff I used to go on. I remember like Dear God Wrestling, this like video game forum thing that where they did stuff in like SmackDown video games, but it was cool. And like, I remember the WWE backstage wrestling forums. Like I remember those things in the conversations I had with people, and I'm like, I want. Going to Obsessed with Wrestling, going to WrestleCrap.com and reading those articles. Like, I remember doing that. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. I wanted people to remember the Wrestling Classic like that.
And
I also started realizing that people started treating it like a brand. And I'm like, oh, if I treat this like a brand, it could be like a brand.
Right.
And I started looking at pages like Complex and there's a whole bunch of other ones I can't think of right now. But and I'm like, oh, I could be like these guys. Well, I'm like, I'm the wrestling guy. I'm the wrestling version of what these people are.
So
the culture.
To wrap up, I've got 10 questions. I'm going to give you 2 wrestlers, and I want you to give me the first name that pops to your mind.
The first name?
The first name. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to give me...
Like better right off the top of the head.
Yes, like don't think about it. Just give me the first name. Yeah. Okay? Let's go. Austin or Rock?
Austin.
Brett or Sean?
Brett.
Jeff or Matt?
Matt.
Edge or Christian?
Edge, unfortunately. I like them both.
Kane or Undertaker?
Undertaker.
DX or NWO?
NWO.
Punk or Cena? Easy one.
Punk.
Benoit or Guerrero?
Guerrero.
Hogan or Warrior?
Hogan.
I think this is going to be a tough one. WCW Randy Savage or WWF Randy Savage?
WCW. Only because that was the first one I was like live and running with. Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I got for you. This went way longer than I expected it would. Do you have any?
Sorry.
No, it's cool. Do you have anything else you want to say, promote, add?
Yeah, if you guys listen to this, if you don't already, follow the Wrestling Classic on Instagram. I am on Twitter at TWC Worldwide. I share all my posts through Twitter, but I also occasionally tweet during shows and stuff, and it's a good time. Make sure you check out the TWC show. It airs first on Dash Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern time on Dash Radio. It's an app. You can download it. It's commercial-free music. But also, it comes on iTunes and Spotify and everything else first thing Sunday morning. If you don't have Dash, you can still listen to it too. Everywhere else you listen to podcasts. The TWC show. Please support. Leave a rating. Let me know what you guys think. And, yeah, check out the Wrestling Classic. Good thing.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
For having me. Good time. Have a good one, man.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.